Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for attending today. This is the Quest on Demand presentation in conjunction with Sigma. My name is Chris Thorpe. I'm the EMEA Cloud Solutions Architect for Quest. And if I just go on to the next screen now, then sorry. Okay, so bear with me a second. I've just got screens everywhere. So there we go. Okay, so with me today is Peter from Sigma. Peter, if you'd like to do the introductions.
Thanks, Chris. I'm Peter from Sigma. I'm the BDM for Quest software, and we are experts in Quest with over 12 years experience with them. So literally any questions, feel free to email me. I'll drop you across my email after this webinar is finished.
Okay, and as the presentation suggests, we do have a special offer in conjunction with the Microsoft free licensing for E1 for the next 6 months. We'll cover that at the end. But what we're going to talk about today is the Quest on-demand license management and group management. So before I get into the depths of the actual products and what they offer, I just thought I'd give a quick overview of who we are. So Quest software is here to solve complex problems with simple solutions. We are a very large organization. We have approximately $1 billion in revenue, got over 130,000 customers globally. We have lots and lots of patents, lots of partners. We've worked very closely with Sigma, as Peter said. With over 3,000 employees, where we have a presence in over 100 countries. And globally, we are the number 2 globally managed partner with Microsoft. So we work very, very closely with them. And we have a very good relationship with them. And we work to assist them and to assist their customers in how to get the most out of Office 365. So if I give you a quick overview around the Quest on Demand portfolio, there are effectively 5 separate modules. There is the migration, which allows us to migrate between tenant-to-tenant migrations. That will allow us to copy accounts, mailboxes, OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, basically everything that you see here. We have our on-demand recovery, which is built around recovering unique objects within Azure AD. So, for example, if you have your enterprise apps and you use things like Salesforce, and you use your your Azure AD to authenticate that, we can recover those items into that environment. We cover off the auditing. So the recovery will also integrate in with our recovery manager for AD application, and it will allow us to have a single interface to restore everything from both an on-prem AD as well as the cloud-based Azure AD. Auditing, similarly, we can integrate that with our change auditor for AD, and other modules are on the horizon. And that allows us to cover off and track everything that people do inside of the Office 365 environment. What we're going to cover off today is the license management and the group management modules. So I won't talk about those too much. We'll cover those in a couple of minutes. So why do people choose Quest on Demand? It is a SaaS solution. So it is built in the cloud. It's built inside of the Azure environment. So we use a lot of the Microsoft technologies around security. We've built it from the ground up to be ISO compliant. So we started off with the ISO 27001, 17, the 18, and we will continue to match all of the different requirements. And as things evolve, we'll make sure that we go through all of these processes. As we mentioned, we are the number 2 co-sell partner globally for Microsoft. So we have a very good relationship with them. We have an insight into their roadmap, and so we can develop our products so that they integrate nicely in with what Microsoft are planning in the future. And it allows us to keep up with those updates, and we try and surface those in a more simple and integrated interface. And so, yeah, you don't have to keep up with everything that Microsoft are doing. So the first module that we're talking about this morning is the license management piece. So typically, license management looks at the Office 365 and goes through what we're talking about in terms of how licenses are consumed within your environment. So we had a number of statements that we had from our customers, typically asking how many Office 365 licenses do I have? Are my users using those services that I've paid for? If I've got expired licenses, who have they been assigned to? How much am I paying for each of these services? And are there any aspects of that license that I'm not using? Should I consider a new plan? Should I switch things around a bit? Should I get a combination of different plans, because that may make my, may reduce my costs, or it can give me pointers into saying how I can promote different aspects of my Office 365 license to encourage people to use more of the features. So those are the kind of questions that we've had. And natively within Office 365, there are a number of limitations. So if you're managing multiple tenants, you have to basically drop into each of those different tenants to uncover what kind of licenses they're using. There's no method to gain any insights into the trends and the license costs. There's no deep dive into how those licenses are being used. They're basically saying, yes, they've been allocated, or no, they haven't. And there's no way to display that information in a useful manner. And there's no way to understand what the costs are of aspects of that license that you may not be using. So, if we look at all of these things, these are things that Office 3, our Quest on Demand license management covers. And it gives us a nice sort of like interface into what people are using. And it can show the trends over time. And it can show the distribution either by department, by country, or however you want to license that. And we can then see what people are doing in terms of how they're covering these different things. So if I now go into my demo, and bear with me just a second. So if I drag this out, so this is our landing page. So when we sign in, I get the option to use my single sign-on. So if I sign in with my Quest account, that will take me into choice. Now I've got a couple of different environments set up. So it will say, do I want to manage my US tenant or my my European one? I'm going to go into my European tenant so I can manage my licenses. My group management is based in the other area. If I have a look at my licenses, as we see, I've a number of distributions here talking about how much I'm paying for each of these licenses, what it's costing me, and what I've got available. So you can see here, I've got a couple of licenses available. I've assigned 41. Now, this is my demo tenants. So I only have 65 users across those two tenants. So it is a useful, in a production environment where you may have multiple tenants, we'll get a lot more information here. So you can see here, I've got a couple of tenants here, but I could take one off and just have the results back from a single tenant. It gives me a lot of useful information there. So if I then go into my costs, this allows me to understand how much I'm paying on an annual basis. So you can see here, I've got 92% of my licenses are unassigned. But if I go across here, it gives me a breakdown into the costs by that license type. And I can also see my costs based on each different department. Now, how do I define those costs? I have a rates section here. Now, in version 1, it's set as a dollar amount, and it's aggregated. And you can see here, you can set the different prices per tenant. What we have coming through will be the ability to put in different costs. So say I have an American tenant, I can put that in dollars, a UK tenant, I can put it in pounds, and maybe a French tenant or the Amsterdam tenancy, I can put it into euros. And we can have the different exchange rates and have everything amalgamated into a single currency. So that is one of the features that we are looking to introduce. But at the moment, we can see here, I've got various different rates that I've got here, and I can have an effective start date. So if I put in a new rate for that particular plan, so say I arrange a new license with Microsoft, I can change that plan and it will show me the differences in prices over those couple of months. I can then go into my licenses, and this will break it down into the different licenses that I've paid for. You can see here, again, I can break it down into the paid for ones and the free ones. So if there's nothing into here, we can see there the E5 is assigned. It's a trial, so it's been put in there as a free demo, and that's why it's not coming in as an actual cost at this stage. I can break that down either by department, by country, or by license. So if I do country, I can put in United Kingdom, and there we go. You can see there it's broken down into a particular plan. Now, I could go into that in more detail and look at these via the products. And it will give me a breakdown as to the three different sections. So are they an active user? So are they currently logged in? Are they an inactive user? So they've been logged in the past, but they're not currently logged in. So an inactive user is pretty much anything that's been logged in a couple of times or once, but is not logged in at the moment. And never use the product is, as it says, these people have never logged into that area. And then, so we can go down, we can see all of the different products and which license they're associated with. Now, one of the features that we have on the roadmap is to also include the Azure applications and the add-ons that people will buy. So currently, it's broken down into the big licenses, so the E3s, the E5s, the E1s, the EM and S. That will be broken down into individual areas as we go through this. What we also have is the summary on a per user basis. So you can see here, I have a number of different accounts, all going through into different areas, where they're linked into, what country they're in, and I can then, again, look at this from an enabled basis and a disabled basis. So if I had some disabled accounts, that would show up in here, and I can then decide what I want to do with them. Again, what is coming on the roadmap is the ability to look at these accounts in more detail and offer suggestions as to what may be a better license. So at the moment, it's a reporting tool. In the future, what we'll be able to do is to say, well, these users are disabled. Do you want to remove the licenses from these users and allocate them back into the pot? And in the fullness of time, we may be able to go ahead and suggest a better license model for the customer. If you do have any questions, please post them in the Q&A section. And if you address it to all panelists, then we'll make sure that we pick up those details and we'll try and incorporate it into the session. And we do have a question here talking about if you have an E3. So yes, this is on the roadmap. So somebody is asking if we have an E3 license, for example, would it recommend an M365 business standard as that is cheaper? And that is one of the things that's going to be on the roadmap. So it will say, yes, you currently have an E3. You may want to move to an M365 business account. And as the final point, we've had it on the roadmap to be able to go back to Microsoft to say, we want to request a reduction in licenses, or we want to remove those licenses from our agreement. So there's a fair bit involved in that because obviously we're not privy to every single agreement, but we can sort of suggest based on the list prices, what would be a better option, and then it comes back to the negotiations as to what may be better options in there. But yes, it's things that are on the roadmap for that. So yes, thanks for the question. That's a good one. Okay, so any other questions about the licenses before I move on to the group management piece? If there are, please put them in the box and we can answer the questions at the end of the webinar as well. So, if something comes to you during this section, we can answer those. And so moving on to the group management piece. And again, this covers off the Azure AD and Office 365. There's a fairly aggressive roadmap for our group management. This will expand over the next couple of months to include teams and have the governance of the teams creation, management, and deletion. And again, looking at various different things included in that. So, what do we see when people are talking about Office 365 at the moment, and how they're seeing their groups being used? Now, I was in a demo with a customer yesterday about this, and they're seeing a huge increase in the growth of both Office 365 groups and the teams that are created from the back of that. Now, there's an increase and an overhead in the IT team because they're having to either let people do this in an unchecked manner, or they're having to approve and create all of their different groups and teams on a per request basis. And again, out of the box, there's limited management capabilities for those Office 365 teams. And it does result in, if users have the ability to create groups, then they create the groups and then may use the group once and then forget about it, or they may leave. And that group is then left there forevermore, until people can actually get around to doing some auditing and some cleaning up of that environment. So similarly, the way that we look at the on-demand group management is a way to devolve the management process back to the end users. So it releases the IT to do the things that they're paid to do. It increases the user productivity because they can just go on and request it, it gets approved, and it's immediately accessible. And there's a full audit trail, and it's a lot more secure than just allowing people to do everything or nothing, which is the current process. So again, we have increased visibility by managing all groups via a single console. So instead of having to jump into different areas, it's all managed centrally. We can keep the environment up to date, and we can use rules for group creation, any naming conventions that you want, having attestation, which is having people come back in and say, yes, this group is still required. Yes, I want to use it. And yes, it's still valid. And yes, the users in that group are still the right ones. We can offload that admin workload to end users by using a self-service user interface. It empowers those users because they can just go in and do what they need to do. And it will automatically keep those group memberships validated. So it does give us an awful lot of flexibility there. And we can integrate back to the AD, the on-prem AD, via the admin user interface, and we can link those together, and it allows people to create actually AD-based groups with the same creation policies, membership duration, and the attestation frequency. So we do allow a lot of different things to come in here. Typically, the only thing that we don't do at the moment is the resource sets, but that is coming again fairly quickly on the roadmap. And that will allow us to allocate things like offices and meeting rooms and pieces of equipment. So if you have a Surface Hub, that can all be integrated into a particular group and allocated accordingly. So yeah, again, move back into my demo. And so if I look at it from an end user perspective to start with, I've logged in here as Adele, and I have a list of approvals. I've got my requests here, and I can look at these different details and have a look and see where the progress is. I've got a group here May the 4th. And my line manager, Miriam, is the next in line to approve this. And I've got just some information about it, who the owner is, what the groups are, any sort of description around what that group is going to be used for. How do I place a new request? So I can go in here, I can place a new request here, and I can say I've got a sensitive group. Now I could have a sensitive label, or I could have a very sensitive label. I'm just going to stick with my sensitive one. Then I'm going to put in my group name. So I'm not going to be very sensible here. I'm just going to say May the 5th. But it could be a group description name, and having that context allows me to say that this is a sensitive group. Therefore, I'm going to have a high level of attestation, and I'm going to put in naming conventions for this. If I just put in my default group, then it's just going to put me up with an open naming convention. So yeah, I'll just put that in again. And I must stop pressing the % key for that. So yep, description, new group for the 5th of May. And I can say when this group will expire. So I'm just going to have it for a year. And I'll just say new group for a project. Now, obviously, this would be more meaningful because it has to be seen by the approver, and they have to decide whether that is meaningful or not. And then go through, and I can pick the owner, which is going to be myself, and then I'm going to put in just some other users into this group. I'm going to submit that. And it's now on the line, it's in progress, and that's it. So you can see here, I've got various different things about adding owners, members, removing things, and I can request a group deletion as well. In terms of what I've done, yep, we've seen that. I can also see in my groups, which groups I'm an owner of and which groups I'm a member of. So at a glance, I can see all of those details, and I can then suggest from here that I'm going to leave this particular group. Yeah, and I don't have to bother anybody else. I can just do that myself. So from a management perspective, I'm just going to have to switch my group management. I'm just going to switch organization. I'm going to go to my US, as this is where I set up all of my group management. Just expand that out. Group management here, and I get the interface for those users. And this is where I set up and configure all of my different options for my groups. But at the dashboard level, I get a quick view to say, oh, I've got 18 groups. I've got one request going through for admin approval. So I can just go through there. I can choose this. I can approve that ability to attest that group. I can then have a look at the self-service requests. And you can see here, there's the group May the 5th. And again, I can approve this, or I can just select it, and it will give me the detail of the list. And I can then choose to approve it on behalf of the current approver. Off it goes, nice and easy. And we have automatic and admin attestations going through the various different areas. If I go into my settings, this is where I set up my different lookup values. So you can see there, I've got my different labels and my different policies. So you can see here when I've got very sensitive, I've got the various different naming conventions, the group creation for the self-service, default is set to Office 365. I could also create a distribution list or a mailing list or a security enabled mailing list in there as well. And if I had mine set up to connect back to my AD, it would give me the ability to create an AD group as well, if I wish them to. And if I then go into my self-service, so these are my different approval levels at the moment, and I can create new ones. I can delete these. I can change what I want to have set here. and then I have the services that I want to have my different users to use. And again, I could change this and I could create different options based on the different users that are coming in. I can also have my service accounts there, and we can see there it's basically just the ability so that I can create my distribution groups and my security group creations and membership details. So that's why I need to have that as a separate setting. And I've got my OUs, so I can create and configure the OUs for my on-premises groups created in group management. Again, no data there because I haven't set anything up. So yeah, that basically allows me to devolve probably 90% of my group activity down to the end users. Now, I wouldn't use this for the admin privileges, purely and simply because I want to keep those separate. And this is meant to be evolving out to those, the end users. So now that I've approved that attestation, I can go back into Adele, and we now have a group here. So I now have the options to say, what do I want with this to do with this group? And I go, yes, I want to still keep this group. And are these users the right people? I can now choose to add extra people in here. So if I say, I just do a search, I can have a look for, so yeah, I can have a look for Alan, just select him. I can choose to remove them from the group. So this is basically just a way to say, okay, I'm going to remove that user from that group because he's, maybe no longer part of that. And then we can see in here, that has now been set, and that group has an automatic attestation. So in 3 months' time, it will go through and it will ask me the same question again because it's a sensitive group. My default group has an annual attestation, or I could choose to leave it out for particular groups. So it does give me an awful lot of options in terms of what we're doing here. So any questions about the group management piece? Okay, well, so in conjunction with the Microsoft offer to say that people could have a free 6-month E1 license, as part of this, we are going to offer 6 months free subscription for both license management and group management. And I'll pass you over to Peter, who will go through the specifics of the details and what you need to do to get that offer.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Chris. So in order to obtain this offer, all we need is for you to reach out to me or your Sigma account manager. We will get the opportunity deal registered for you. We then have the parts on the base to send you a zero value quote with on-demand license management or on-demand group management on it. And then we can help you set up and provision that 6-month free subscription to on-demand license management and on-demand group management. It's really simple. Obviously, we, Quest and Sigma, will be holding your hand throughout all of it. So it's a really good opportunity for you to go out to your customers and talk to them about this here. It's a great way to win new customers and also work with the customers you have to make sure they're getting the most out of their Microsoft estate. So I look forward to hearing from you all after this webinar.
Yes, and if any of the other modules are of interest to you or to your customers, then again, let us know. We'd be happy to have a conversation with them, and we can look to maybe increase the value to the customer by including these different modules and working on a bundle for them. So yeah, whatever you need, come and talk to us. We'll be able to help in some way, shape, or form. Okay, and I see that we are just on time, or just a little bit over time. So with all of that, I would like to say thank you to everybody that's attended. Yeah, it's been really good to see that number of attendees. I appreciate there are an awful lot of webinars going on at the moment, so thank you for attending this one. We will be having another session next week where we have another offer in conjunction with Sigma. So if you haven't registered for that one, please go on and look for that. It is all around migrating into the cloud. So if you have customers that have file shares, we have some really good offers there for them as well, which we'll talk about in more detail next week. Okay, so with that, thank you everybody for attending, and hopefully see you next week. Okay, bye now.
Well, bye.